Hello and welcome.
Welcome to the Unfazed Podcast. I'm Ben Sturick.
And I'm Emmett Lefebvre.
And today we're going to kind of start off with a little bit of a bummer, actually, a huge bummer, actually. Anthony Bourdain died yesterday, or technically today. It's still Friday.
Yeah.
And super depressing, man. He was one of those guys I always really admired and just thought was really great, really entertaining to watch. I loved watching his TV shows, and he was just a very interesting dude. And hearing that he passed away, apparently from suicide, was just really depressing and really tragic. You hear about a lot of celebrity deaths, and some affect you in different ways, some more than others. And there's something you hear about, and you're like, oh, that's a shame, but you kind of keep going. But for whatever reason, this one really hit me. I was like, that really sucks, because he seemed like a guy who had so much going for him, and had a family, and a lot of fans and a lot of people who cared about him. And it was definitely a shocker. It was one of those that just really sucks, and it's sad that we're not going to see or hear any more from him.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really tough to, with suicide specifically, it's very tough to find any sort of pattern. Like, you really never know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
This guy, I was just watching some of his videos and sort of learning about who he was. I didn't really know much about him. But, he seemed like he had everything going for him, and he lived a great lifestyle. I know he had some trouble with drugs early on that might have played a part, because I know that can sort of mess with your perception of things after the fact. But, even so, yeah, it's just, there's really no way to tell.
Yeah, my thing with Anthony Bourdain, the guy was a chef, an author, a host, just a really cool guy. And like I was telling Emmett earlier, he's one of those guys that I thought was a really great representation of how to grow old and be cool.
Yeah.
He was 61, but he's one of those guys where it's like through his 50s and early 60s, you're like, holy shit, man, you can still be cool, and you can still be hip, and you can still be traveling the world and doing amazing things at that age. And I think he and Henry Rollins are prime examples of guys like that who are just total badasses, and it just seemed like he had everything figured out. But apparently he didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. So I was also trying to figure out, who this guy was, and it sounded like on the news a lot he was, just a chef or whatever. But looking more into it, he was really a guy that created sort of his own medium. He essentially did travel vlogs, right?
Yeah, but just very high end.
Yeah, very high end. Just a way of encompassing, the world and all its aspects. So that's a super cool thing to do. So what he did was very unique. And he did it with his sort of cool, charming, laid back attitude. So I'm sorry I sort of didn't follow him, earlier.
Yeah, I liked him from Travel Channel's No Reservations. That was my first time getting acquainted with his stuff, when that was on the air. And just a really interesting dude, and it just goes to show you never know. You look at people like Anthony Bourdain, Chris Cornell, Prince, anyone like that. You never know.
Yeah,
you just never know. Robin Williams. You really don't know what's going on in their personal life and in their heads. And still, this is still so fresh. It's suicide, but who knows the reasoning behind that? To throw away your family and your career and your life like that, who knows? Maybe he found out about some incurable illness that he had, or who knows? We don't know the full story. It's all speculation. Yeah. And it's so easy for people to say, oh man, you're fucking selfish, like what an idiot, how could you possibly? But we don't know what was going on in his head, Maybe his perception of things was so radically different, even having it all, maybe didn't play a part in his decision making because he was so far down the rabbit hole mentally in like depression or anxiety or whatever it might have been.
Yeah.
So obviously his decision making was kind of I don't even know the word I'm trying to say, blurred, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, sort of ambiguated.
Yeah, it really sucks. It's just sad stuff like that because you're not going to see any more from that person ever again.
Yeah.
But I guess to try to find a silver lining, watching some of his videos and interviews and stuff, he said, how crazy his life was when he was younger. He should have died in his 20s. So imagine if that would have been true, if he would have gone balls to the wall and OD'd when he was like 28. We never would have even known who he was.
That's a very good point, yeah.
So it's kind of cool that, he did clean up for that, middle part of his life and become such a success in his 40s and 50s. And it's great that we got to see him and share experiences with him through his shows and through his writing. And I think he was a great guy. And even though he left this world in a very dark and sad way, and definitely far too soon, it's cool that he was able to leave his mark.
Definitely, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, definitely still a lot of respect for him, even though apparently he chose to end his life. I mean, we don't know what was going on in his head. And a lot of people like that. I mean, if you're feeling depressed, I mean, don't keep it in, because there's really no reason to kill yourself.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. But that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. That's a nice way of putting it into perspective. How he very well could have died in his 20s, and he came out of that and he made something incredible of himself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. He's a great man. Yeah, if you guys want to get acquainted with him, I mean, just look him up. Just do a YouTube search or go on Amazon and get some of his writing and check him out. He's a great guy. Definitely, even though he's gone, he's still left a lot of great stuff behind that you can check out.
Yeah, totally.